The neighborhood kids called her the running woman. Every morning at exactly 6:15, rain or shine, Olivia Mercer pounded down Maple Avenue, brown ponytail snapping with each determined stride. Today looked no different, except for the phone clenched in her hand like a lifeline. She checked the screen for the 5th time, rereading the text she'd sent at 5:38 a.m. to what she thought was her sister's new number. Jane, the twins have fever again. Can't make it to work today. Need to reschedule Mr. Patterson's meeting. Please let everyone know. The reply, 3 minutes later, hadn't come from Jane. Wrong number. But twins with fever sound serious. Do you need help? Mortified, Olivia had fired off an apology and shoved the phone into her bag. Just one more chaotic moment in an already impossible day. Single motherhood wasn't for the weak, and neither was running a tiny accounting firm while raising 5-year-old twins. As she turned the last corner toward home, something caught her eye. A sleek black limousine idling in front of her small 2-bedroom bungalow, engine humming softly in the cool morning air. A tall man in an immaculate suit stood beside it, checking his watch. Olivia slowed, then stopped. Kids on bikes had stopped to gawk. Mrs. Gonzalez paused mid-spray over her roses. Nobody in this working-class Portland neighborhood owned or summoned a limousine. "Miss Mercer," the suited man called, walking toward her with professional calm. "Yes." Her hand flew instinctively to her messy ponytail. "My name is Harrison. I've been sent to assist you today with your children." He offered a rigid white card. It bore only a name and company. Daniel West Global Investments. Olivia's stomach plunged. "There's been a mistake," she said quickly. "I don't know any Daniel West." Harrison's expression didn't shift. "Mr. West received your text message this morning regarding your twins. He's asked me to bring you and your children to his residence. He said, and I quote, 'We need to talk about the twins.'" The world tilted. Daniel West. The Daniel West. The reclusive billionaire who popped up on magazine covers. The man who had turned a small tech startup into a global empire. "This is absurd," Olivia said, backing up a step. "I accidentally texted the wrong number. That's it." "Mr. West was quite insistent, Miss Mercer." Harrison's voice stayed courteous but firm. "He rarely involves himself personally. Yet he specifically referenced your twins by name, Ethan and Ellie." Olivia froze. "I never mentioned their names in that text." Harrison went on quietly. "He also noted that Ethan is allergic to penicillin, and that Ellie still sleeps with a stuffed elephant missing one eye." A cold shiver crawled up her spine. He was right on both counts. "Who are you people?" Her voice shook despite her efforts. "How do you know anything about my children?" Harrison's features gentled a fraction. "Ms. Mercer, I understand your alarm. I've worked for Mr. West for 15 years. He is extremely private, but he is not malicious. He told me the coincidence was too significant to ignore." "What coincidence?" "That is for Mr. West to explain." Harrison reached into his inside pocket. "He has arranged for a pediatrician to meet you at his home. He also knew you intended to miss work today, and has already contacted your office." "You called my workplace?" Olivia demanded. "Mr. West did," Harrison corrected. "He spoke with Jane and informed her you'd be unavailable. He also rescheduled Mr. Patterson for next Tuesday." The mention of her sister and her client by name sent another jolt through her. How could a billionaire stranger know so much about her life? "I'm not getting into that car with my children," Olivia said, planting her feet even as her knees trembled. Harrison nodded as though he'd expected exactly that. "Of course. Mr. West anticipated your hesitation. He held out a sealed envelope. He asked me to give you this if you declined." Olivia tore it open with shaking fingers. Inside was thick cream stationery, the message written in a confident, decisive hand. "Olivia, I understand your caution. The world can be dangerous for a single mother. 16 years ago, I donated to a fertility clinic in Portland. This morning's misdirected text wasn't coincidence. The birth dates match. We should talk. If you prefer, I'll come to you." Daniel West, she staggered back, memory crashing over her. Paperwork at that fertility clinic, the donor number she'd chosen, the day the twins were born. She'd never expected to know the donor's identity. Had never wanted to. She built a life that didn't include him. Miss Mercer, are you all right? Harrison took a half step forward. I need to see my children, she whispered. Of course. I'll wait here. Inside, Mrs. Chun looked up from the picture book she was reading on the worn couch. Ethan and Ellie, flushed with fever, were curled against her. Mommy! They called together, faces brightening. There's a big car outside, Ellie announced. With a driver, Ethan added solemnly. Olivia knelt in front of them, suddenly studying their features as if for the first time. Ethan's determined jaw, Ellie's sharp, assessing eyes. Traits she'd never been able to trace to anyone. How are you feeling, loves? She brushed their foreheads. Hot, Ethan muttered. Yuck, Ellie agreed. Still 101.3, both of them, Mrs. Chun said, handing her the thermometer. Same as earlier. Olivia's phone buzzed. A new message from the unknown number. Your children need medical attention. I have Portland's best pediatrician waiting. No strings attached. Just help for the twins, please. She looked from her children to the cramped living room, to the stack of unpaid medical bills on the counter from their last round of infections. She thought of the work she'd missed, the clients she might lose, the constant tightrope she walked. Then she thought of the limousine outside, still idling. Mrs. Chun, she said slowly, could you help me get the twins dressed? We're going to see a doctor. 20 minutes later, Olivia sat ramrod straight in the limo's plush leather, a feverish child tucked against each side. The car glided away from the curb, and the sense settled over her that she'd just made a choice she couldn't undo. They merged onto the highway, heading toward the West Hills, home to Portland's richest. Toward a stranger who claimed to be bound to her children by blood. Toward answers she'd never thought she would have to face. The road wound upward into the hills, each turn revealing another massive estate hidden behind ornate gates. Olivia pulled the twins closer. Ellie hugged her one-eyed elephant, brave like a shield. Ethan pressed his cheek to the tinted glass, briefly distracted by the view. Do princesses live here, Mommy? Ellie asked in a hoarse whisper. No, eso es. Just people with a lot of money, Olivia replied, keeping her tone even while her thoughts whirled. Mr. West's residence is just ahead, Harrison said from the driver's seat. The limo slowed at a more understated entrance than the others, a simple gate with a small plaque, Westridge. The gate swept open without a sound, revealing a long curving drive lined by towering Douglas firs. The house that emerged at the top wasn't a glass palace or a faux castle, but a sprawling wooden stone lodge that seemed rooted into the hillside. It's like a fancy cabin, Ethan said, voice soft with awe despite his illness. Harrison parked under a wide-covered portico. Mr. West designed it himself. He values privacy and simplicity. Olivia almost laughed at simplicity, applied to what had to be a property worth tens of millions, but anxiety kept the sound locked in her chest. The front door opened before they could knock. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes stood there, apron tied neatly at her waist. I'm Martha, the housekeeper. Please come in. The doctor is waiting in the sunroom. Olivia hesitated on the threshold. She was about to walk into a powerful stranger's home, with her children, based on a note claiming biological ties. Every self-protective instinct screamed no, but the twins needed real medical care. And something in that handwritten letter had felt sincere. Martha seemed to sense her conflict. It's all right, dear. I've worked for Mr. West for 20 years. He's an unusual man, but a good one. The children will be safe here. Inside was unexpectedly warm. High-timbered ceilings, shelves of books, overstuffed chairs with softened edges. The luxury was undeniable, but lived in, not museum-like. In a bright room overlooking a Japanese garden, a distinguished man with salt and pepper hair rose to greet them. Miss Mercer, I'm Dr. Reynolds. His handshake was firm but gentle. Let's see how these little ones are doing. His exam was thorough and kind. He spoke directly to the twins, explaining each step, rather than talking over them as so many doctors did. Classic tonsillitis, he concluded. I brought antibiotics, but I understand Ethan has a penicillin allergy? Yes. The familiarity still unsettled her. I've brought suitable alternatives, Dar. Reynolds assured her. These should bring their fevers down within a few hours. I've also got ibuprofen for comfort. As he dosed the twins, Olivia finally asked the question burning in her chest. Where is Mr. West? Martha and Dr. Reynolds exchanged a brief look. In his study, Martha replied. He thought you might need time to settle before meeting him. I'd like to see him now, Olivia said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. If you're sure the twins will be all right. They'll be fine, Dr. Reynolds said. I'll stay with them. Martha's laid out some books and quiet games. Ellie looked up, fever-bright. Can we stay here a while, Mommy? I'm tired of being sick at home. The words pricked like needles. Home. Their tiny house, their second-hand furniture. The roof that always seemed to drip from somewhere. Here, even while sick, they were surrounded by comfort. Just for a little while, Olivia said, smoothing Ellie's hair. I'm going to talk to Mr. West. Martha led her through corridors lined with art and carefully chosen objects, pieces that looked like they belonged in museums, yet somehow didn't feel showy. They stopped at a heavy wooden door. He's expecting you, Martha said softly, knocking before opening it and slipping away. The study was all books and maps, dominated by a massive window overlooking the Columbia River. A tall man stood there, back to her, hands clasped behind him. Thank you for coming, he said, still facing the glass. His voice was deep and controlled, every word carefully chosen. How are the twins? They have tonsillitis. Your doctor's treating them. Olivia stayed near the door, arms crossed protectively. How do you know so much about my children? Daniel West turned. He looked to be in his early 50s. Dark hair shot with silver at the temples. And eyes, a clear, piercing blue, that made her heart stutter. They were Ethan's eyes. I've known about them since they were born, he said. Anger surged through her. That's impossible. The donation was anonymous. I chose specifically not to know who you were. To you, yes, he agreed. But the clinic maintained records. He gestured toward a leather armchair. Please sit. This will be easier if you're not standing. She stayed where she was. Are you telling me you've been watching us for 5 years? That's stalking. It's illegal. A shadow crossed his features. I haven't been watching you. I've respected your anonymity. I've simply made sure they were safe and healthy, at arm's length. Nothing more. And I'm just supposed to take your word for that? Olivia shot back. A billionaire just happens to receive a wrong number text from the mother of his biological children? That's not coincidence. That's orchestrated. It wasn't coincidence, he said slowly, sitting behind his desk, putting more space between them. I've had your number for years in case of true emergency. I never intended to use it. When your text came this morning, he paused, looking for the right word. It felt like the universe had intervened. Fate. Olivia's tone was flat. Or convenient timing? His eyes didn't waver from hers. I understand your suspicion. In your position, I'd feel exactly the same. But I meant it when I wrote that I've never interfered in your lives. I just cared. From a distance. Why? The word ripped out of her. Why would a man like you care about 2 kids you've never met? For the first time, something in his perfectly controlled expression cracked. He looked down at his hands. They were strong hands, she noticed, not soft despite his wealth. 16 years ago, I was told I'd never have children of my own, he said quietly. A rare genetic condition. When I donated, it was before that diagnosis. Later, when the clinic contacted me for updated medical information, they mentioned a successful birth. Twins. He lifted his gaze to hers. They would be the only children I ever fathered. How could I not care? Olivia sank slowly into the chair. Her fury dimmed by the raw honesty in his voice. They're 5, she said softly. You know that. I know. He nodded. Born April 12th. 6 weeks early. But fighters, both of them. He opened a drawer and slid a manila folder across the desk. I never contacted you because I respected your choice. But I did keep my own medical records updated in case you, or they ever needed them. She opened the folder carefully. Inside was an exhaustive medical history, genetic screenings, family conditions, blood work. More detailed than anything the clinic had provided. My condition isn't hereditary, he said. They won't inherit it. Why show me all this now? She asked. Because your text wasn't just about a fever. His gaze sharpened. The twins have been ill often this past year. 3 episodes of tonsillitis. Repeated ear infections. You've noticed they tire easily. She stiffened. How do you know that? Portland's a small city in some circles, he said. Your pediatrician, Dr. Hang, is highly respected. He trained under one of my foundation's medical directors. My assistant flagged that a mother with twins was bringing them in repeatedly. The ages, timing, and location matched. You've been tracking my kids' medical visits. She stood abruptly. That is absolutely. I haven't seen their files. He cut in, voice still calm. Doctor-patient confidentiality is something I take very seriously. I only saw patterns in the clinic's de-identified data. I made an educated guess. Why? She demanded. What do you want from us? To help, he said simply. Our children may need care beyond standard pediatric visits. Dear. Reynolds isn't just a pediatrician. He's head of immunology at Portland Children's Hospital. As if on cue, there was a soft knock. Dr. Reynolds stepped in. Ms. Mercer, the twins are resting comfortably. The fever's already dropping. But I'd like to discuss a few observations, if I may. A knot formed in Olivia's stomach. What kind of observations? The frequency of their infections. The pattern of symptoms, he said. I'd recommend some further testing. Nothing urgent or frightening, he added quickly as her expression tightened. But children their age shouldn't be sick quite this often. I've taken them to their doctor again and again, Olivia protested. He says they're just building their immune systems. That twins share everything. Often that's true, Dr. Reynolds agreed diplomatically. Still, I'd like to rule out underlying issues. Dr. Reynolds has access to advanced immune system mapping, Daniel said. It isn't widely available. It would give us a more complete view of what's going on. And these tests, Olivia said, skepticism hardening her voice, must be very expensive. They would be, Daniel said. But cost? Cost is always relevant to me, she snapped. You might be able to ignore it. I can't. Something in his face shifted. Not pity exactly, but recognition. Of course, he said quietly. You're right. I apologize for assuming. Dr. Reynolds took the opportunity to excuse himself and check on the twins. When the door closed, silence pressed in. I don't need charity, Olivia said at last. This isn't charity, Daniel replied. It's responsibility. You fulfilled your responsibility when you donated, she countered. Legally. Ethically. That was the deal. He walked to the window, staring out at the river, hands in his pockets. Do you know why I donated to that particular clinic? He asked. She blinked at the sudden pivot. I assumed you were like most donors. Young. Needed money for tuition. A humorless breath of laughter left him. I was 36 and already worth more than $50 million. He turned back. My sister was a patient there. She couldn't conceive. The clinic director asked me for help. They were short on certain donor profiles. Education, health background. I agreed as a favor. Did your sister use your donation? The question felt strangely intimate. No. She and her husband chose adoption instead. But by then my sample was in the system. He paused. 2 years later, after my diagnosis, I asked them to destroy it. Evidently they didn't. Olivia remembered sitting in that clinic, flipping through binders of anonymous profiles. Donor 7293. High IQ, excellent health, achievements in both science and art. Everything she'd wanted to give her future children. They never told me, she said faintly, about your diagnosis. Or your situation. They wouldn't have known the details, Daniel said. Confidentiality works both ways. One more question had been nagging at her since she walked in. If you've really kept your distance all this time, she said slowly, why respond to my text at all? Why not ignore it like any other wrong number? His composure slipped just a shade. Because for 5 years I've known there were 2 children out there with my DNA, he said. I've watched from afar as you raised them on your own. When a message appears out of nowhere saying they're sick again, from a number I've never used. It felt like I'd been handed a second chance I'd be a fool to ignore. His voice dropped. And because 6 months ago, my doctors gave me a prognosis I'm still adjusting to. The implication landed with a thud between them. You're sick, she said quietly. The same condition that made me infertile is progressive. He agreed blandly, as if reading a report. We've managed it for years. Lately it's been less cooperative. Are you dying? The bluntness slipped out. A faint, tired smile tugged at his mouth. Eventually, yes. As are we all. The humor went nowhere. In my case, the time frame is just shorter than anticipated. He sank back into his chair. I've arranged for my companies, my foundation, my estate, he added. Everything is accounted for. Except, Olivia finished, for 2 children you never expected to meet. Exactly. A faint echo of laughter drifted down the hallway high. Bright voices she knew instantly. Daniel's head turned toward the sound, his expression softening in a way that startled her. They sound happy, he said. They are, Olivia answered, unable to keep the pride from her voice. We don't have much, but they're good at finding joy. Like their mother, he said quietly. She wasn't prepared for that. Before she could reply, Martha appeared at the door. Sorry to interrupt, but the little ones are asking for their mom. And they've thoroughly captivated Jason. Daniel's brows lifted. My nephew is here? He arrived about 10 minutes ago. He's currently being instructed by your daughter on proper tea party etiquette for a one-eyed elephant. The phrase your daughter shivered through the air. Daniel looked back at Olivia, silent question in his eyes. I should check on them, she said, standing. Of course. He hesitated. Olivia. She realized it was the first time he'd used her first name. Meeting them was never part of any plan, he said. But now that we're here, I'd like to help secure their future. No strings. There are always strings, she said, years of hard-won independence in her tone. Not this time, he answered quietly. You have my word. As she followed Martha down the hall, Olivia couldn't shake the sense that whether he meant to pull them or not, thin invisible threads already tied their lives together. The room Martha led her into was clearly designed with children in mind, though it looked as if it hadn't seen much recent use. Shelves of books and educational toys lined the walls. At a miniature table, Ethan, Ellie, and a young man in his 20s perched on tiny chairs, each holding a plastic teacup. Mommy! The twins shouted. The medicine made us better, Ethan reported, cheeks still pink but eyes brighter. And Jason can make really good elephant noises for Brave, Ellie added, thrusting her beloved stuffed elephant in the air. The young man rose, unfolding his tall frame from the tiny chair with an easy grin. He had Daniel's strong jaw, but his eyes were warmer, open. Jason West, he said. Your kids are incredible. Ellie has already critiqued my elephant impression, and Ethan has reorganized my phone's home screen for maximum efficiency. Despite herself, Olivia smiled. They like to take charge. Wonder where they get that from, Jason joked gently, giving her a look that uncannily echoed his uncle's. Martha cleared her throat. Jason, your uncle would like to see you in his study. Something unspoken passed between them. Jason nodded solemnly. I've been called to the throne room, he told the twins grandly. Will you be here when I get back so I can improve my elephant voice? If Mommy says we can stay, Ellie replied, glancing up at Olivia with pleading eyes. After he left, Olivia knelt. How do you feel, really? Better, Ethan said, then whispered conspiratorial. This place has everything. Even a movie theater. Jason said he'd show us. And there's a garden with a pond, Ellie added. With real fish. Pang went through Olivia. Things these people took for granted were fairy tale luxuries to her kids. We'll see, she said. We might have to get home soon. Mrs. Chun will wonder where we are. Mrs. Chun has been informed that you may stay for dinner, Martha said, arranging art supplies. We've prepared the guest suite if the children need to rest before you leave. The assumption grated. But the twins really did seem better. And the thought of dragging them back and forth across town, sick and exhausted, made her shoulders sag. We'll see, she repeated. In the study, Jason paced in front of Daniel's desk, hair even more tousled from running his hands through it. "You can't just drop this bomb," he said. "On them. On any of us." "The board meeting is in 3 days," Daniel replied calmly. "The succession plan goes ahead as written. Nothing changes." "Nothing." Jason stopped, incredulous. "There are 2 kids in the playroom who share your DNA. Kids you've apparently known about for years. That seems like something." "The existence of the twins doesn't affect West Global," Daniel said. "You are still my heir and successor." "Maybe legally," Jason said. "But they're your biological children. They have a mother who's raised them brilliantly without me," Daniel answered firmly. "My aim is healthcare and financial security for them, not to drag them into corporate politics they never asked for." Jason studied him, seeing through the calm facade in a way only someone raised by him could. "This isn't about the company at all, is it?" he said quietly. "This is about you." For once, Daniel didn't deflect. "They're 5, he said. "Smart and stubborn and funny. And if I'm fortunate, I have 2 more years." Jason stilled. He'd lost both parents to a freak boating accident as a teen and had watched his uncle bury grief under relentless work. Seeing him admit vulnerability now said everything. "What about their mother?" Jason asked. "She seems formidable." A hint of a smile touched Daniel's face. "She is. She's built a business and raised twins alone. She doesn't accept anything easily, including help. Which means nothing here will be simple." Back in the playroom, Olivia watched her children paint at the little table while Martha moved around them with unhurried efficiency, anticipating every need. Tissues, fresh water, extra paper. "You're very good with kids," Olivia said. Martha smiled, something wistful in her eyes. "I raised Mr. West's nephew after his parents died. Before that, I helped look after Daniel himself. The West men have had more than their share of tragedy." "What happened to his parents?" Olivia asked before she could stop herself. "His mother died of cancer when he was 12, Martha said gently. "His father threw himself into work. Daniel was brilliant and lonely, always taking things apart to see how they worked. By 16, he was writing software in his bedroom. That became the foundation of West Global." The picture didn't match the cold, calculating tycoon she'd imagined. Before she could ask more, Reynolds appeared. "Ms. Mercer, could I speak with you?" His tone was calm but serious. "We have the preliminary blood work." Olivia's heart lurched. "Is something wrong?" "Nothing urgent," he reassured her. "But there are some unusual immune markers I'd like to investigate further. It's not immediately dangerous, but it could impact their long-term health." He suggested comprehensive testing at the hospital the next day. "What kind of tests?" Olivia asked, mind leaping to deductibles and caps. "I don't know if my insurance—" "Mr. West has arranged everything," Dr. Reynolds said gently. "Insurance won't be necessary." Her spine stiffened. "I can't just—" "Ms. Mercer," he interrupted softly, speaking as a doctor, not as Mr. West's employee. "These tests could explain why your children have been so sick. Would you really refuse that information because of who's paying?" Put that way, her resistance felt selfish. What kind of mother let pride override her kid's health? "I need to think," she said at last. When she walked back in, Daniel was sitting cross-legged on the floor, looking at the twins' paintings with unfeigned interest. He glanced up as she entered. She gave a small nod. Relief softened his face. "Mommy, look." Ethan waved his paper. "It's our house, but bigger. With a pond like here. And I drew brave with 2 eyes, Ellie added, holding up her picture. "Because Jason said in this house broken things get fixed." The words hit like a punch. In their world, broken toys stayed broken. The roof got patched, never replaced. Wishes waited behind more urgent needs. Daniel must have seen her reaction. He rose, smoothing his expensive trousers. "Martha's made dinner," he said. "Nothing formal." "The children requested pizza." "With real cheese," Ethan chimed in. "That stretches." Later, in a cozy corner of the huge kitchen, Olivia watched her children devour homemade pizza and regale Daniel and Jason with stories about kindergarten, their friends, and an elaborate game involving Brave as a space explorer. Daniel listened like there was nothing else in the world he'd rather be doing. asking questions that drew them out further instead of dismissing their chatter. When the twins finally surrendered to sleep on a plush sofa, Daniel led Olivia onto a terrace overlooking the glittering city below. "They're extraordinary," he said quietly. "You've done an incredible job." "They make it easy," she replied. "They're just good. In themselves. I'd like to set up a trust for them," he said, the measured tone returning. "For education. Healthcare. Opportunities." She tensed. "I've managed for 5 years without your money. And you've done it beautifully," he said, no trace of sarcasm. "I don't doubt your ability. But I'm not offering this to diminish you. I'm offering it because this is what a father is supposed to do, provide for his children's futures." The word father hung heavy. "You're not their father," she said, more gently than she expected. "You're their biological donor. That's not the same." "I know." He met her gaze. "And I'm not asking to change your definitions. I don't expect to walk in and start calling myself dad. I just would like to know them if you'll allow it, in whatever way you're comfortable. And whether you allow that or not, I want to make sure they have every opportunity." She thought of tuition, of medical bills, of the what-if nightmares that kept her awake. What if she got sick? What if she couldn't work? What if something happened and there was no one to step in? "If, and that's a big if, I agree to any kind of trust," she said slowly. "It comes with conditions. I stay the final authority in all decisions. I'm their mother. That doesn't change." "Agreed," he said immediately. "And any relationship you build with them stays steady," she added. "No coming and dazzling them and then disappearing when things get hard. Or when your condition worsens." A shadow crossed his features. "I can promise stability for as long as I'm here. After that." He glanced through the glass doors where Jason was tucking a blanket around the sleeping twins. "Jason has been more of a son than a nephew to me," he said quietly. "He understands what family means." Olivia followed his gaze. In just one day, Jason had been patient, playful, and genuinely delighted by her kids. Another unexpected connection in a day full of them. "We start with the tests," she decided. "Nothing else. One step at a time." "One step at a time," Daniel agreed. They stood side by side, looking over the city lights, as the outline of an unconventional family began to form. Not the one either had imagined, but one pieced together through choice, chance, and shared DNA. In the months that followed, specialists confirmed and treated an underlying immune issue. With the right regimen, the twins' health improved dramatically. Daniel became a constant but careful presence. He came to birthday parties and school performances, sat in small chairs at kindergarten art shows, always checking with Olivia first. He never tried to override her decisions or claim a title he hadn't earned. The trust he established meant college tuition would never be a question. Necessary treatments were covered without battles over coverage. Summer camps and enrichment programs became options instead of fantasies. And 18 months later, when his condition advanced more quickly than anyone hoped, it was Olivia who organized the hospital visits. She who watched her children climb into the bed of the man who had quietly become their friend, bringing him drawings, knock-knock jokes, and 100 small brightnesses. It was Olivia who sat them down and explained, as gently and honestly as she could, what he'd been to them, how he was connected to them, and what it meant to say goodbye. And when the time came, it was Olivia who stood beside Jason at the private memorial. Two unlikely allies brought together by love for the same 2 children, and by respect for the complicated, brilliant man whose choice years ago had bound all of their lives together.